Welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids Podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so happy that you're listening today. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. I'm glad you're here. Hey, be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, friends, today is our last episode of season 4, and I'm thrilled at how much we've been able to do this year, and I cannot wait for all the fun things that are coming in the fall. But the Collide Kids Podcast is going to take a few weeks off. We usually take off the month of July and a few weeks in August just because school's starting and it's crazy. And if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. So you can still take the Collide Kids Podcast with you this summer. Just go back and search through all the episodes and find another one that you and your family will enjoy together, especially on some of these long road trips. My family loves to listen to podcasts on road trips. So there's lots of great episodes to choose from. So you can just go to my website or my social media and find all the episodes available there, or just scroll through randomly and hit play. I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's lots of good ones. Well, today I am really excited to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name is William Warren. He is an author, illustrator, and entrepreneur who has spent his career using visuals to help communicate ideas and tell stories. He is the founder and CEO of The Sketch Effect, a visual communication company that helps make ideas understandable and actionable through animation, live event sketching, and infographics. William lives in Atlanta, Georgia with his wife, Monica, and their 3 kids, Liam, Gracie, and Preston. I think you guys are really going to be fascinated by what William does, and you're going to love learning his story. So here is my conversation with William Warren. Awesome. Okay. Well, William Warren, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids Podcast today.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, and you're a fellow Georgian, right? You're in Atlanta as well. I'm a little north of Atlanta.
Yes, I'm born and raised Atlantan, which is kind of a rare thing. I feel like such a lot of people are moving to our city and to the state, and I've been here the whole time.
You've been holding it down for us, so that's great.
That's right.
Well, would you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I'd love to. So I own a business called The Sketch Effect, and it's a really cool business. Basically, I get to, and my team gets to draw for a living. We work with a lot of big businesses like Chick-fil-A and Delta Airlines and Home Depot and Google. You know, a lot of businesses you think of we've worked for, and we help them communicate their ideas in a more exciting way using visuals. Basically, if you've seen a cartoon, which we've all seen cartoons, we basically make cartoons for professional business people to help tell their ideas and tell their stories. And we do it in 2 ways. One is through animation. So we make animated videos.
Cool. Like
on YouTube, you've seen animated video on YouTube, or those videos where you got the hand in the video and it's like, drawing stuff out. We make those. And then our other service, which is really unique, is called graphic recording. And what that means is we go to corporate events, and while people are talking and sharing ideas and having really important discussions, we are there drawing out what they're saying. We're making live visual notes of the big ideas and some of the important things they're talking about, because these are important people and they're talking about a lot of important things, and we have the privilege of getting able to sketch out what they're saying. And so that is the business. And I've also recently written a book, which we can get into as well, which I'm really excited about. Yeah. So yeah, we're doing a lot of fun things over here at The Sketch Effect.
That is so cool. Okay, I can't wait to talk to you about this. I have a lot of questions. But before we do that, because this is a show for kids, I always make my guests start out by telling me a joke. So, what's your best joke? What you got?
Well, I've got 3 kids, so I've got a lot of dad jokes.
Okay.
And I'll give you this one. What is the best time to go to the dentist?
I don't know.
2:30.
2:30. That's true. That's true.
Get it?
Yeah.
Tooth hurty.
2:30. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. What
I
else?
told you it was going to be bad.
That's good. I like that. A good dentist joke.
That's right.
That's a good dad joke for sure. Well, okay, so tell us about how you got started. How did you figure out that you like to draw?
Well, I always knew I loved to draw. You know, when I was a kid, I have early memories of drawing in church, which, you know, probably distracting people around me, or doodling in class. I always loved to draw, and I got really into comic strips and cartoons when I was a kid. And so growing up, I made my own comics, I made my own cartoons, and I had characters and told stories and did all sorts of fun adventures and did that all growing up. So in school, I worked for the school newspaper, in middle school and high school, and then in college, and then I even did it professionally a little bit after college, making comics and cartoons. So I always loved to draw, and then I went back to grad school to Savannah College of Art and Design and got a master's degree in illustration to even get better at it. So for me, it's always been a part of my life ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah. What were your favorite things to draw when you were a kid?
I loved drawing animals, so I had a comic strip called Rocky and Spade, and this is a real throwback, and it was about a frog and a salamander, and they were best friends, and they would go on all these adventures, and it was heavily inspired by Calvin and Hobbes, because that was my favorite comic strip. If you or your listeners have heard of Calvin and Hobbes, it's just amazing. So heavily inspired by that, and these little critters would go on adventures, and they had a friend that was a turtle, and they had a friend that was a bearded dragon or some kind of lizard, and all kinds of reptiles and amphibians. That was my jam for a long time.
Okay. Was there someone or something that inspired you to draw or to be interested in drawing?
Well, my dad, when I was 6 years old, I have a memory when I was really little of my dad reading Calvin Hobbes to me at night in the bed, before bed, and that was the original inspiration. I loved that comic. I loved reading it. I loved looking at the drawings, studying the art. It heavily influenced my own art style and my own communication style. So that was a big one. And then also, video games. I've always loved video games. So I remember playing like Mario and Zelda and some of those famous video games growing up as a kid. And I loved playing the game, but I always loved looking at the manual and looking at the box and looking at the artwork on the box and the manual, and then trying to copy the drawings or, draw Mario the way it looked in the book, or draw the Zelda characters the way they look in the booklet. So those were two big influences for me when I was a kid to get me interested in creating my own artwork, my own drawings.
Yeah. And so you said you did drawings all through, college, and then you started to do it professionally. So what did that look like? Like, how, were you going to get another job and then you started doing this drawing stuff on the side, or did you know you wanted to have a job in sketching?
Yeah, that's a great question. And from when I was little, I wanted to be a professional cartoonist. That was the career.
Okay.
That was the career master plan, was that I was going to graduate from college, and then I was going to launch my comic strip and get a syndication deal, which is how back in the day, when newspapers were still a thing, you would get a syndication deal with a big syndicate, and that's how you became a professional cartoonist, and then you published books and all that. Unfortunately, I graduated college during an economic recession, which basically means that a lot of businesses were running out of money. And so what happened is a lot of newspapers started to go out of business, and a lot of newspapers were going online only and shutting down their print editions, and they were laying off their staff. Basically, they couldn't keep them couldn't keep paying their workers. So that dream of being a cartoonist became not so viable. Basically, it was no longer a very good career path for me at the time. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but it's been exciting to see how that dream of making comics has morphed into this business I get to do at the Sketch Effect. Because essentially we are making comics for a different audience, making comics for professionals, for business people. And it's been amazing to see that dream get resurrected in a different form.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. Because when I think of comics, I think of like entertainment, they're fun or they're funny or they're exciting. And so you're doing this for professionals. Talk a little bit about how you got started in that and how you realized this is something that other people, like businesses, could use. We'll be right back after this. You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
Sure. So, with my career being kind of in flux in my 20s, I was reevaluating, trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. I ended up getting a job at Chick-fil-A corporate, which their office is here in Atlanta, or just south of the city. And that was a great experience for me because here I was working in a big business. I was learning about business. I was learning about leadership. I was learning about all these great business principles that I had never learned before. I was working with the people that inspired me and encouraged me, and that was a great job for me. But there was a problem, which is that it wasn't leveraging my talents. My God-given talents were not being fully utilized, and specifically my ability to draw. I've always loved drawing. I think I'm fairly good at it. I have a master's degree in illustration. And so that skill set was not being leveraged in that job. And so what I did was really just to have fun for myself is I started to doodle and sketch my own notes in meetings. A lot of times we're in meetings, sometimes they're boring. In order to kind of keep me focused and keep me awake, I would take out my sketchbook or my notebook, and instead of just taking normal notes, I would draw my notes. I would make visual notes. And for me, that was just a creative outlet, just a way for me to inject some creativity in that, businessy job that didn't have much creativity in it. And what happened is that the people around me saw what I was doing and they said, "Hey, William, that's really cool. Can I take a picture of your notes? Or can I take a picture of that and put it in my presentation? Or, hey, William, will you do your sketch notes on the whiteboard so we can all watch and see?" And it just became this thing where people realized I had a talent and they wanted me to help them out with it and provide the sketching for their meetings or for their notes or their presentations. And that's when I realized that there was a really good business idea anchored on this principle of visualizing people's ideas and things people want to present. And so that became a little side hustle, just kind of a hobby that turned into a side hustle. I would take days off work and go do a couple of what we call gigs or jobs for people. And then there were enough of those that made me convinced that I could leave and start a whole business based on this idea of visual communication.
That's really cool. And I love this idea of visual communication because there's lots of different ways that people learn. And so sometimes people learn by listening. Sometimes they learn by, hands-on experience. And sometimes it's by that visual interaction, looking at it. And so I'll admit, I also like to draw during meetings, but I like to doodle flowers and fireworks and frogs and random things that have nothing to do with what the speaker is talking about. So how do you do that? How do you come up with a visualized picture of what someone's talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll preface that by saying, you're right. We all learn in different ways. And I know your audience is mostly kids. kids love visuals. You know, we when we're kids, like everything's visual. Picture books, school's visual. There's posters in the rooms, and I love it. And there's something that happens to us when we become adults where we are told that that's no longer how it goes. You know, you become a grown-up and then you're expected to read everything, or to read a long email, or to read a long PDF document, or you're expected to sit in a chair and listen to someone talk for an hour or so. And for some reason, adults think that visuals are just for kids. And the sad reality is that it's not. You know, we're all visual learners. And in fact, visual learning is the most powerful of the 4 learning channels. So we learn through auditory, which is hearing information. We learn through verbal, which is reading words. We learn through kinesthetic, which is, you know, touching and doing and feeling. And then we learn through visual, which of course is seeing information. And the visual is the most powerful of those 4 learning channels. And so if you know, our business, the Sketch Effect, exists because we help our clients bring that visual learning into the corporate setting. And so that's just a quick note about that. And I'll also mention that even your doodling that you mentioned, drawing flowers and fireworks and things, that's still beneficial to you because the tactile action of putting pen to paper while you're learning is activating kinesthetic learning channels because you're doing, your hand is doing something. So unless you're totally zoning out, if you're still trying to focus and you just happen to be doodling while you're listening, it's actually going to help you remember and retain those ideas better. So to all the kids listening, keep doodling. It's a good thing. I'm a big fan of doodling. If someone tells you not to doodle in class, just tell them you're learning in a different way.
That's
and
right.
And then blame me if you get in trouble. Just blame that podcast guy.
I listened to this podcast guy, and he told me I could.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast once, and that, they gave me full permission. But, right. For us, you asked about how do we come up with how do we know what to draw? Mm-hmm. Well, that really depends. That really relies on our ability to synthesize. Now, what does synthesize mean? Synthesize means you listen to a bunch of information, and you pick out the things that are that matter the most. So, for instance, if you were at a birthday party and there was a piñata, and you bash open the piñata and all the candy goes everywhere, and there's little bits of candy, and there's medium-sized bits of candy, and there's big pieces of candy. To synthesize, you would ignore all the little candies, and you would just pull out the big ones, and maybe a couple medium ones, and then maybe a few of the small ones, and that's essentially synthesis. So when we're listening to a business meeting, and they're talking about a lot of important ideas, we try to pull out what is the most important idea. They're talking about a lot of things, but what is that one important theme or that one resonating topic? And then we draw that, and we have a whole bunch of visual concepts that we have. So if they're talking about momentum, let's say that the theme is momentum, we might draw a big train, like barreling down the track, because that image conjures up this idea of momentum. Or if we're talking about vision, setting a big vision for your life or for your business, we might draw a captain on a ship looking through a spyglass, like with vision. Or if they're talking about conquering some big goal, we might draw a person on top of a mountain, like planting a flag, because that visual communicates this idea of achieving goals and winning and conquering. So that's just a couple of insights into how we do it. It's a lot of fun. That's the most challenging part. The drawing is the fun part. The hard part is synthesizing those ideas, is picking and choosing what's the most important things to include and what to leave out.
Yeah. Do they give you their notes in advance? Like, do you kind of know what they're going to talk about before they go up?
They don't. They give us they give us the topic, and they give us maybe a couple of high-level ideas, like this meeting is going to be about marketing strategy or something, or this meeting is going to be about how we can increase revenue or whatever. And so we know what it might be about, and we know about how long the meeting is going to go or how long the session is going to go. Mm-hmm. And that's it. The rest relies on our team's ability to actively listen and synthesize. I kind of glossed over the active listening part. That's another really important part of the process, is we need to also be really good listeners in the room, really paying attention. It's called active listening. It's basically like listening, but the next level. It's like powered up listening. And so if you, if you go to your mom or your dad and you say, Mom or Dad, I'm going to be a good active listener, they're going to just be, their mind is going to be blown. Because listening is a superpower. It's an incredible skill that is not only important in the business world, but also important in families and in relationships and, between friends. So that'd be my one bit of advice for now, is just to really practice and get good at being a good listener.
Yeah. I've heard active listening, the difference is a lot of times we listen so that we can respond, like we listen so that we can have something to say, but active listening is listening to understand. And so you're listening to what they're saying so that you can understand what they're saying. And that's a little more difficult sometimes. You really want to pay attention, like you said, and try to take in what they're communicating and why they're trying to say it.
Right. It requires a lot of humility as well, because most of the time, like you said, when we're listening with our agenda in mind. How does this benefit me? How can I have a rebuttal? What can I say in response? How can I one up someone else? And active listening, it really takes humility. It puts the other person in the hero. It makes them the hero. It's really an act of service. You're listening to them. You don't have your agenda in mind. You're listening, as you said, to understand, which is a really amazing skill.
Yeah, and like you said, it's so good for relationships, not just for your job, but for the people you live with and the people you're friends with, to be a good active listener.
If we could all be better at listening to each other, I think 99% of the world's problems would just go away if we just listened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's something you said earlier that I want to talk about. You said that when you were working at Chick-fil-A, that you realized you were not using your God-given talents. What did you mean by that?
Right. Well, I'm a believer that all of us are all given talents, and it is really a fulfillment of our purpose to leverage our God-given talents to bring as much value to the world as possible. I also believe in growth mindset, so I don't believe we're locked into our talents. I think we can expand our talents. We can take what we're given, and then we can grow from there. And so, for instance, with me running a business, I'm not naturally talented at math. I'm not naturally talented at numbers. When I was a kid, I tried my best to avoid all the math classes and barely scraped by, and I got a C in statistics. I hate spreadsheets. I don't like looking at numbers. But I've had to learn that. And, I believe in growth mindset, which is, essentially your skills are not locked in. You can expand your skills. You can learn new things. Mm-hmm. Challenges are opportunities. Other people's success is not a threat. It's an opportunity to learn. And the opposite of growth mindset is fixed mindset, which is, I'm locked in. This is what I'm good at. It's all I'm good at. I'm not good at anything else, and I have to do it. And I think the real magic happens when you realize what your God-given talents are. You lean into it, but you also embrace growth mindset to where you can also expand and you can get better at other things in addition to what you are naturally good at.
Yeah, I love that idea of growth mindset. I think I've always been good at talking with people, but when I was younger, podcasting didn't exist, and so this is a new skill that I'm learning, to be a podcaster, where before it was something that these were some random things I was good at, and now I get to put all those things together. So there might be something that you're good at right now, but that medium or that platform doesn't exist yet, and so you just have to keep working and growing, and then you too will have the ability to do something with that at some point.
Or you could create the new thing, Think about all these people who, I know YouTubing is really big right now, but all these people that have created these amazing YouTube channels, they started as new. That was a new 10 years ago. There wasn't a whole world of professional YouTubers, and now it's new. It just takes some ingenuity and some courage and some gumption and the willingness just to try.
Yeah, and it's okay to mess up, right?
Of course. That's one thing I always encourage young people, which is that try a lot of stuff. Growing up, being young, whether you're a kid or a teenager in your 20s or even in your 30s, it's a great time to try a lot of things. See what you like, see what you don't like. Don't be afraid to fail, and if you do fail, see failure as an opportunity an opportunity to learn and to bounce back and get better so that next time maybe you are more successful or you learn from it. That's another big part of growth mindset, whereas you interpret failures through a different lens. When you fail, it's not an indictment, or it's not a sign that you are bad or you are a failure. It's just a sign that attempt or that thing didn't work at that time. There's tons of factors that could go into why that thing may have failed. It's not that you're a failure. It's just that thing at that time in that context failed. So having growth mindset, you learn from the failure and then you bounce back and you try again.
Absolutely. And I believe too, most of the times we see someone that's succeeded or done something amazing, it's because they failed 100 times before that. And this was the one moment they finally got it, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your book. You said you wrote a book. Now, is this a sketch book or is this a book with words in it?
It's both. Can you believe it?
Oh, okay.
It's both.
I love it.
Here it is. It's also, I got the poster behind me. It's called The Conquering Creative. And this is a business book for creative people. So I'm a creative person. I've always loved drawing. And for most creative people like me, the business side of things does not come very naturally to us. We like to draw or paint or sketch or make music or animate or make YouTube videos or make, whatever it is. We like to do that creative work, but all that business stuff, like reading a profit and loss statement, looking at the bank account, doing sales, doing marketing, that stuff does not always come naturally to us. And so a lot of people, myself included, we get really intimidated by that. And oftentimes that scares us and that makes us not want to start a business because we don't think we can do it. And so I've been running my creative business now for 10 years, and I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. I still don't really know what I'm doing a lot of times, but I have been learning, and I've been documenting what I've been learning. And so this book is really nine shifts, 9 chapters. Each chapter talks about a different shift. A shift in thinking, shifts in action, or shifts in outcomes. 9 shifts to build an unstoppable creative business. Because if I can learn it, then you can learn it, And I will say it does have words, but like we talked about, it's also fully illustrated. I think there's almost an illustration on every single page.
That's awesome.
And because I wanted this book to not just, I wanted this book to appeal to creative people. And most creative people are not going to pick a business book off the shelf that's just full of words and that thick and read it. They're just not going to. So I wanted to write a book that was approachable, that was friendly, and that anchored the ideas back to a lot of cool drawings. Because like I said, adults don't have to only have text, Mm-hmm. Kids aren't the only ones who should have illustrated books. I think business books even for grown-ups. And I think this book is not necessarily for little kids, but teenagers I think would love it, or students in high school or college I think would love it.
Well, I think what you're saying is adults are jealous of all the illustrations kids have in their books. We want those.
Grown-ups deserve illustrated books. We do.
Right. We do. I love that. And I love that you've made that.
We're not too grown up. We should have illustrations in our books.
Yes. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you focused on what's being talked about. So I love that you do that and that you've created this medium for businesses and for people that need that. So I'm so glad that this is out there. Well, this has been so good, William. I really appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing your story and talking about all of the stuff that you're doing right now. Before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. So what memory do you want to share with us today?
All right. One of my favorite memories that I have when I was a kid was the day that me and my neighbors, I had a couple of really good friends that lived not on my street, but they lived kind of down the street or down the main road and then around a corner and then on a back street. Mm-hmm. And I remember the time where we discovered that we could get to each other's houses by hiking through the woods. And that was amazing because previously we'd hop on our bikes and we'd ride up the street and then down the sidewalk and then like half a mile down the road and then down another street, and it would be this, it would take time. And then we realized, hey, we can actually go through the woods and get to each other's house. And we made a trail, and then we made it an annual holiday. It was actually, I remember it, It's actually today. It's June 29th, the day we're recording
really?
this. Unbelievable. Yeah, it was called Annual Adventure Day. And it was the day that we discovered that we could get to each other's houses through the woods. And so we would do that hike all the time. And it would take longer than riding our bikes, but that wasn't about efficiency. It was about just how excited we were that we kind of blazed a trail, created our own way through the woods to get to each other's house. This was in Sandy Springs, so it wasn't like, dense woods. It was just, if your listeners are from Georgia, Sandy Springs is just a suburb of Atlanta. So we weren't like hiking through, the mountains. It was just going through people's backyards and through a creek and, behind an apartment complex. But either way, we felt very proud of ourselves that we had made this discovery.
I love that. And I love that that's today.
It is, June 29th. Literally.
That's amazing.
I'm not making that up.
That's so good.
I should text my old neighborhood buddies to be like, "Hey, happy Annual Adventure Day."
You should and say, shout out to the podcast. Go listen to it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's so fun, and I love that that's today. Where can our listeners find out more about you and your sketching and your book?
Yeah, if they want to learn more about the Sketch Effect, we have a website. It's called thesketcheffect.com, and that's effect with an E, thesketcheffect.com. We're also on Instagram at The Sketch Effect. We post a lot of fun tutorials, actually, about doing what we do, about sketchnoting, and kind of how to draw things and how to draw people, how to draw faces. So if any of your listeners are creative types and they want to go there, it's great. It's family friendly. We put good content out into the world. So that's to find The Sketch Effect. If they want to learn more about the Conquering Creative, about my new book, the website is theconqueringcreative.com/book. Or actually, the conqueringcreative.com/book. Yeah, theconqueringcreative.com. And there's a little link there. There's information about the book. You can click to buy. It's on Amazon. You order it and you'll get it in a couple days. And I'm also on Instagram at The Conquering Creative. And it's a lot of business stuff, business content, but it's all illustrated. It's all visual. And so, yeah, if that sounds interesting, I'd encourage people to check it out.
That's awesome. Well, William, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was so much fun.
I loved it. This was great. It's fun to talk to an audience of mostly young people, mostly kids. Yeah. So hopefully it was a lot of value for you. And keep it up. Stay creative. Keep doodling in class. Pay attention, but doodle also if you want. And enjoyed it.
William said you could.
I did. You can blame me. They can hunt me down if they want.
Wasn't that so good? I just loved learning about his job as a sketch artist. I think that's so cool to be able to watch someone take notes where you're in a meeting or someone's teaching something and the notes come alive because they're animated. I think that's amazing. I love when he talked about how we all learn in different ways and that visual aids are very strong and they bring the learning to life. He also said that doodling is helpful. It helps activating the part of your brain that helps you learn in a different way. And I think that's so cool to know that as you doodle, you might actually be helping yourself. He also said that God has given us lots of talents and he wants us to use those to help people in the world. And so we should have this growth mindset of taking the talents we have and growing those and learning new talents to try lots of new things and don't be afraid to fail. He said we need to see failure as an opportunity to grow and be more successful. If you want to learn more about William and his book and his sketches, you can head over to thesketcheffect.com or find them on Instagram and Facebook at The Sketch Effect. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So here's a joke from Charis.
Hi, my name is Charis, and this is my joke. What's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus.
Great job, Charis. It is a plus. That's so true. Well, if you would like to be on the podcast just like Charis was in our next season in the fall, you can still send your recordings in all summer long and whenever you'd like. Just head over to the website collidekidspodcast.com and click the tab at the top that says Kids Only, and you can record it right there. It's super easy. Or you can find information about how to send it to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at the Collide Kids Pod. You can also support the podcast with ratings and reviews reviews and with sharing and subscribing. Most of all, I appreciate your prayer support as well, especially as we take this time off just to rest. We like to call this a Sabbath, which just means we're resting, but we're also putting our trust in God that He's going to take care of us no matter what we do. I hope you guys have a wonderful summer, and I hope that you enjoy this time with your family, and I look forward to seeing you guys back in the fall. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.